Yeah, I was gonna try and take this over to Jaren's shop to work, but got quite a bit of snow on the ground. So there's a lot of talk about getting the KTM 350 EXC-f a little more power. The engine is capable of more power, but it's choked up from the factory in order to be street legal. There's some different ways to do it. If you're watching this video, you probably know about the Vortec ECU. With the ECU upgrade and then a new pipe and opening up the air box, that should, in theory, get us more power. However, that is the expensive route to go, buying that ECU. So in doing my research, I found a couple different ways you can achieve supposed 10 extra horsepower. KTM and Husky.com, they sell some parts. A lot of people on Thumper Talk question their methods. It all seems pretty legit to me though, so that's what we're gonna try today. So I've got 3 parts. I've got KTM and Husky.com. They make this end cap, which is, as you can see, a lot less restrictive than the stock pipe on this bike. It still has a spark arrestor, and he even gives you a quiet insert. Not really sure why you'd want to do that. I think it's cool when bikes are loud, but gonna try this out, put this in, so that opens up the exhaust a little bit. The airbox, this piece is from Mototerra. This is 3D printed in Oregon. This replaces the reeds, the air reeds that are in the airbox for this bike. The reason this bike has air reeds in the first place, doesn't need them. It's just there to reduce emissions, I guess, and create less sound from the airbox, apparently. This goes in there, frees the airflow from there. So then the last thing with that, there's a lot more air flowing through the bike then. We need to either, at this point, add the Vortec ECU or put in just an aftermarket ECU controller, which JD makes one. I think there's a few different ones out there. However, there's also this pigtail harness you can buy this is from tpsadjuster.com, and this goes in to your TPS, your throttle position sensor, and you put a voltage meter up to it. You can adjust your TPS settings from there to try and get the best mixture of air and gas. So I'm gonna give it a go. May or may not work, but we're gonna give this a shot, try and keep this as cheap as possible. So you get an idea here of how much more restrictive this is. I mean, the screen on the back and this giant spark arrestor that's plugged up on this end. I can't imagine there's as much air as there can be flowing through here. Shed's a nice little workspace, great place to hang out, but for now this is just too difficult for me to try and do this video. So I'm gonna pack it up and I'm going to shovel out a little pathway, truck the bike, and go over to Jaren's garage where it's nicely lit, nicely warm, and he can help me film this video a little better. All right, made it to Jaren's garage. It's much nicer in here to work than my cramped little shed, and I can fit a camera in here too. So I've got the end cap on. I'd probably advise to not start the bike with just the end cap on, even though you've seen me do that already. I just didn't care too much and needed to get the bike out of the snow. I guess there's this rubber boot on here that you're supposed to cut out. All right. Here's what was in there. This is the Mototerra intake tube. It supposedly just shows right in here. You see this hole here. It needs to go over this little needle.
That fits in there good.
So now that we have a much more free-flowing exhaust and a much more free-flowing airbox, we need to adjust the mixture then, because right now if we started the bike it would be running extremely lean. So we need to richen it up, add more fuel. That's where this pigtail harness comes in, and we're gonna put it into the TPS. Again, like I mentioned, this is a test. You know, there's better ways to do this. this is the cheapest route, and I really want to experiment with how cheap we can get this done and see if we can actually get that 10 horsepower out of this without any issues. I've read that it can cause backfiring and some flame outs. We'll see what happens here. I'm gonna do my best with it, but again, you know, without actually having an accurate reading, we're not really gonna know for sure. So we'll see what happens. This little bracket here, I can then access it. Okay, so we gotta get this. We gotta get access to the TPS here. All right, so there's a top screw here, and it looks like you either have to rotate the entire throttle body, loosen it and tilt it down, or if you can find a screwdriver small enough, shove it in this little tiny hole and see if you can loosen it doing that. Okay, so that was wishful thinking. That mini screwdriver was about to start stripping that screw. So I'm gonna take the tank off and try and get a better idea of what's going on here and see how I can access this. Just a couple clamps in here on the throttle body on both ends. I'm gonna loosen those up and try and twist the whole throttle body down a little bit. Okay, I did what I said I was gonna do, and I loosened the clamps on the throttle body, and then just with a little bit of force, twisted the whole throttle body and aimed it a little further. So you can kind of see that top screw there. Boot cover that was on here, it came off easily. 2 bolts, one on top, one on bottom. So now this is the TPS, and what we'll do here is put in our pigtail harness, and we'll get a voltage meter and see basically what this is at. And then we'll loosen these screws and rotate this as needed. And handle it, yep, there it goes. Okay, and so now one end of the harness plugs in here, like so, and the other end goes back into the TPS. Okay, we have the harness plugged in because we don't need to worry about this green wire. There's a red wire and a black wire. More pink than it does red. Plug in your voltage meter into these little slots. Okay, and then I'm going to key on the bike to send voltage to the TPS, and we got our voltage meter on. The key is on now. So this is where we're going to get some flack. I know that there's better ways to do this. You want to have actually a TPS adjuster that sends 5 volts to the TPS at all times. What happens when you turn on the key, the bike is sending voltage to the TPS, and it's not accurate every time. Every time you start it up, it's going to be a little different. It might be 4 volts, might be 5, might be 6. So the argument there is that we'll end up having an inaccurate reading every time we adjust the TPS and we read our voltage meter, because this isn't actually sending anything to the TPS. It's the bike doing it itself, which isn't going to be completely accurate. So that being said, this is an experiment. Chill out. We're not trying to tell you to do this. This is what we just want to see what we can do for the absolute cheapest bang for our buck, and see if we can actually get a decent power gain without any problems doing it this method. Now that we have this, you can see that we're about at 0.55, 0.54, 0.56. That's the adjustment. You're clearly seeing it's changing because it's getting power from the battery. Once I loosen these, I will turn the TPS either clockwise or counterclockwise, depending on what number I want to get to. I'm gonna start out, I'm gonna go up to about 0.70 on the voltage meter just to see what happens there. The slightest bit of turning of this thing changes it quite a bit. All right, so that's kind of where I want to start. Right around 0.70, 0.71. Again, because there isn't 5 volts going into this, exactly, this could be actually a little bit different than what it says. So I'm gonna tighten this up, put the tank back on, give this a go, see how it feels, see if I notice anything wrong, and then from there, I'll keep this plugged in and I can adjust it as needed, add a little more fuel or take away a little more fuel. It seems like a lot of people who have done this method of adjusting the TPS described that they've found backfiring occurring. The way around this, according to KTM and Husqvarna.com, is to basically block off the air injection. Clean this off. I'm going to duct tape this and just put it right back in so this can't get any air. Yeah, I mean, just from that little ride in the street, obviously there's too much snow to go riding anywhere in the dirt, but there's absolutely, very clearly more power coming out of this. You know, to get an accurate adjustment, we'll have to see what it does to the gas mileage. We'll have to see, you know, how it feels the whole day of riding. But for now, I'm gonna leave it at this, and then next time I'm out riding, I'm gonna take that voltage meter in the harness and just adjust as needed. But that, I mean, that was just like, I'm amazed at how much power came out of this. So this end cap looks great, it sounds great, and it feels great. Everything about what just happened felt so awesome. I'm pretty stoked right now. So yeah, the end cap from KTM and Husky, I think is a great buy. Much cheaper route than buying a full new exhaust. Because you know, this exhaust is actually a pretty nice exhaust. It's just that end cap, the stock end cap is just so restrictive. So this is a great buy. The Mototerra intake tube, that thing is, as you can see from just looking at the reeds, it's just open flow. We'll see how it does just as time goes on. And obviously the harness, there's more accurate ways to there's more accurate ways to get a correct TPS adjustment, or not even doing the TPS at all, just doing the ECU, but they're more expensive. So the cheapest route you can go with all of this, we just did, and I'm amazed at so far with what has happened. You know, I'll keep you posted, and you know, as time goes on, we'll see what actually happens here, if I need to make much more adjustments, but we'll find out later, and I'll make another video with you know, a couple months out just to review with how this is going. But for now, I'm keeping this the way it is because that was fucking awesome.
Second,
and then when we hit this track.
Okay. Definitely there.
All right, so we're out here on a nice warm day. The snow is melting, as you can see. I've adjusted this a little bit more to more like 0.73. The power is absolutely 100% there. I feel like it's a whole new bike. I mean, there's definitely probably around 10 more horsepower, and I can feel it. I mean, second gear and third gear, my front wheel's coming up without popping the clutch or anything, and it wasn't doing that before. Jaron and I just drag race, so he's got the Husky right here, and that's stock, and these bikes were pretty much neck and neck before, and now I'm pulling away, definitely. So in my opinion, it's an upgrade worth doing for sure, and I'm having a lot of fun. So if you want to try it, you should go for it. Worst case scenario, you set it back to the factory tuning of the TPS, and then you could just throw in a new ECU or something. So other than that, like, you need to definitely do the airbox and the end cap. So worked for me.